Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us tmosso@the1916company.com for purchase, pricing, and availability questions concerning this watch. This one is a king from Franck Muller. This is the Cintree Curvex Minute Repeater Imperial Tourbillon in full platinum. This is the one I've been waiting for all my life. At last, the master of complications delivers something actually created while he was running product development at the company, and with, wait for it, complications. There are many Franck Muller watches that feature 3 hands and a Soprod or ETA automatic movement inside. There are many Franck Muller watches created after he left the company and had substantially little or no responsibility for product design. But this right here, a mid-1990s set of features, the 1995 Imperial Tourbillon and the 1996 edition of the Minute Repeater. The example you see right here is a version of the watch, number 1, 5850 RMT, Minute Repeater or Repetition Minute Tourbillon. And of course, this has a sale date of 2003, so these were very low volume watches, even at the peak of the brand's popularity. The full tourbillon in platinum with a minute repeater was always going to be a low take rate exclusivity, something up there alongside the world premieres as one of the standard bearers for the original blockbuster independent brand. So what you're looking at here, 32 millimeters across, not inclusive of the diamond-studded platinum crown. It is 12.1 millimeters thick, and then from lug tip to lug tip, 45 millimeters, with an 18 millimeter spacing between the lugs. Of course, Franck Muller, famous for his pioneering wristwatch tourbillon timepieces of the 1980s, also designed the Cintree Curvex case during this period, which actually has 3 planes of camber, and you can see all 3 of them here. It became standard design language for his brand at the peak of its popularity in the 1990s, and because this watch isn't all that large in absolute terms, it wears nicely on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist, and it is quite low, so it'll fit easily underneath a dress cuff. Here's your over-the-top shot. I'd recommend it for a wrist as small as 14 centimeters circumference. You do feel the weight, though, in platinum. The strap is high grade. The watch just came back from Franck Muller, so it's been freshly serviced. You can see pull tab spring bars, so you can pop the strap off the case without a tool. A substantially close fit between the two, though no impediment to the motion of the strap. It has a very integrated look, but there is no stiffness here. The strap, large rectangular symmetrical scale alligator leather with a semi-gloss black finish. You could appreciate that the edges are cut and lacquered for refinement with a monotone stitch. Cav on the bottom, no crimping, no gouging, brand new factory strap. Here we have a matching platinum pin buckle. The watch is in good taste, pretty much all satin finished with the exception of some elements on the crown and the repeater slide. In fact, taking a look at the crown in profile, you can see that it's been polished outboard, and then this diamond, we'll get as close as we can, has been beautifully faceted and squared off on its end. The attention to detail here is endless. The form is still well defined. You can see a repeater slide, the influence of Jean-Pierre Hagman on Genevois repeater case design. You can also see that we have the taper of the case from the middle to the end, the curvature of the case from end to end over the top, and then the camber of the case from side to side. So a triaxial curvature. It's almost like it has the curvature of a sphere if you were to get the arc right at the top of the crystal. And what you can also see is that the watch is a monoblock, so it's a back loader. Everything goes in through the back. The bezel and the case are all one piece for a seamless look, and you can see how perfectly this crystal has been fitted. Generally, when you have this type of crystal, adhesive is what holds it to the case, but you can't see any bleed out of the adhesive. It is super clean in its fitment. The dial is something special. You can see that it appears to be a stamped, sort of vertically basket woven guilloche, but what really sets it apart, it's stamped guilloche isn't in and of itself extraordinary. It's fairly common in the industry. It's the fact that it is super thick lacquered, and the closer you get, the more the features of the dial seem to float above the dial, particularly if you look at the serpentine seconds hand that's acting as both the end of the tourbillon assembly and the seconds hand of the watch. You can see that these numerals almost look like applique. In fact, so do the larger numerals, and that's because they sit on what might be a 0.5 millimeter thick bed of clear lacquer. The hands, beautifully blued, which you're looking at as an unusual complication. Well, it might appear to be a power reserve indicator for, say, the watch itself. It's actually a strike barrel power reserve indicator. You charge the strike barrel to sound the chimes using the slide, and then we've got this mirror polished and then micro beveled steel bridge for the tourbillon, which you can see is beautifully decorated. The tourbillon itself has handsome mirror polished and beveled cage structure with black polished screws. It has an overcoil hairspring, so it will remain isochronous and breathe concentrically and keep even time in every position. 1 minute tourbillon, the beat rate is 18,000 vibrations per hour. You can see the movement is spectacular. 32 joules, 5-position adjustment, the standard for high horology and chronometer. It features black polished strikers on the reverse side, a fantastic florisant or scroll style floral motif. On the edge of every one of these skeletonized and engraved bridges, you could see a mirrored bevel that's super broad, the same treatment inside all of the jewel sinks, black polished screw heads. The gongs are formed to trace the form of the case and the form of the movement. You can see this is number 1 right here, and if you look carefully, you can see that the case back has been freehand engraved. So these characters, you can see they're not perfect. They're beautifully imperfect in the way that freehand engraving always is. More beautiful for its flaws, I say. Now on the dial side, the minute repeater. If you really want to impress your friends with the minute repeater, you set it to 12:59. By the way, this manual wind movement with approximately 50 to 58 hours of power reserve. See how close we can get to 12:59. Again, if you want to impress your friends, you go for 12:59 and then you strike. You can see how that works. Once the hand stops moving, it is safe to set the watch and strike the repeater again. That's your little safety cue. That's why that is there. A watch that absolutely pegs the meter, platinum, beautifully sized, from the height of Franck Muller's virtuosity when he stood not just alongside, but arguably above masters of later repute like Denis Flageolet and F. Pigeorn. It's almost like the old saying, before anyone did anything, Elvis did everything. Before anyone did anything, Franck Muller did everything. And this is one of those watches that genuinely feels as though it were created by a master of complications. Beautifully handmade inside and out. Well, it doesn't have the loudest repeater. It does have a wonderful tone. And that's a quality that is just as difficult to achieve, if not more so, relative to volume. You can make a loud clanging repeater, and JLC does that well in titanium. This actually has a great sonorous quality, especially by the standards of 90s repeaters, a really special sound. Also, fun fact, the late Robin Williams actually owned one of these as well. The more you know. Consider it to be 0 meters water resistant, characteristic of minute repeaters built during its era. Reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.